or in the chat. I'm gonna have Q&As in between each pillar, just so people can have time to dissect each pillar and ask any questions that they may have, and I'll give you the best answer I can possible. So what is generational wealth? And that's actually a question for the group. So feel free to type in the chat which you would define generational wealth as, or what you think of when you think of generational wealth. And if you don't want to answer, that's fine. I have a definition anyway, so that it's cool either way. Ooh, showed it too early. The chat's not popping up for me.
So one of the answers that you have is being able to ensure that future sons and daughters don't experience poverty, financial struggles.
I love it. That's probably a better definition than I'm going to put up. I think that's amazing. Anything else?
Yes, you have generational wealth. To me, is wealth being built from the ground up and allowing it to grow for the next generation.
Oh, perfect.
Those are the only two thus far.
All right, that's still those are two great definitions. Those both fall into what I'm going to talk about in a second. So what is generational wealth? Also referred to as old money. These are assets passed down from one generation to the next, including all these assets listed out here that you see. So real estate, cash, investments, stocks, bonds, all those things are assets that can be passed down to the next generation. But also understand that on top of passing an asset down, you have to pass down knowledge. What good is an asset without knowledge, how to leverage that asset? So as you're talking about generational wealth, make sure you're thinking about the knowledge and the information you're also passing down to other generations. When I think about it, a small business, if you own a small business and you own a hair salon, and that's a business that you're growing, that's an asset, and you can pass that down to your son or daughter. But what will your son or daughter do with that business if you didn't teach them how to properly run a business? If you didn't teach them anything about finances, then how will they properly run that business? And that same thing applies to anything else, to handling cash, handling investments, to handling real estate. You have to also pass down the knowledge. So yes, assets are important. That is part of generational wealth, a big part of generational wealth, but also pass down that knowledge and the information from the experiences that you had to your children or your cousins or your little brother or whoever's around you, to kind of help everybody start on that path to creating and maintaining generational wealth. Something that people don't talk about that I think is even more important in some sense than generational wealth is generational stability. Now, that's not a term that's commonly used, but generational stability really relates to creating financial habits and understanding finances so that we can pass down the knowledge to our children, to our cousins, to our family, to our friends. So not just passing down the asset, like I said, but passing down the knowledge. And as you're thinking about what it takes to create generational stability or generational wealth, take into account what is motivating you. For me, I'll probably bring it up a couple times. It's my daughter. Like, yes, I want to have great finances for myself, but as well as my daughter, what will I leave behind for her? What will her life look like because of the financial choices that I've made? And you're setting your family up to have a better future and a better start than you did. And it's similar to generational stability is similar to physical or mental health. So before you can be physically fit or physically healthy, you have to be consistent and work out. You have to be consistent and eat healthy. And generational stability is the same concept. It's the concept of understanding finances and then also applying your understanding of finances to your life. So it's not so part of that is like I said, and I'm gonna keep saying it, passing down the knowledge as well as the assets. Something that I thought about, something I think about that I read a long time ago is 70% of lottery winners go bankrupt within 3 years of hitting the lottery. Not the people that do like the scratch offs, but like 100K plus, and they go bankrupt. Why? Because they didn't have the financial habits in place that would allow them to maintain and grow that income. Same thing with, similarly with financial literacy, is okay, you understand finances, but it means nothing if you're not applying your understanding of finances and practicing sound financial habits. Now, if you have financial habits, but you don't have any financial literacy, then you're probably practicing poor financial habits. So the combination of those two things is pretty much what leads to generational stability or generational wealth. So I don't really care about revenue streams at this point because we have to have habits and the understanding of finances in place in order to maintain, not only create, but maintain generational wealth. Have our family and friends maintain generational wealth based on the knowledge that we've provided. And also, just to add this in, obviously, or not obviously, but generational curses, which is something that's referred to often, is something that comes from historical factors as well for people of color, but also comes from people passing down poor financial habits to other generations. So one thing I think about that somebody told me was like, it's okay to pay your bills late. It is not okay to pay your bills late. You don't like obviously circumstances it take that sometimes. Obviously with COVID, people are going through hard times. I don't want to discount that. But understanding that it's those things aren't okay. Like, okay, it happens sometimes, but those shouldn't be habits that you're practicing consistently and understanding that you have to have positive financial habits in place or good financial habits in place in order to create and maintain generational stability. So this is a question for the group. What are some poor financial habits that you've practiced or that you've seen family or friends practice? I mean, they can be the same as the ones I have up here or other ones. Regina, let me know if anybody comments in the chat.
Absolutely. Someone said payment holidays, making minimum payments on credit cards.
And we'll talk about that. I love it.
Buying new cars every other month. Thinking of tax returns as extra.
Yep.
You will always have debt. Not investing in assets. Spending money not yet received. I've seen so many people spend money that is anticipated and spending money on items that do not need to be replaced, i.e. the latest phone, computer, cars. Relying on tax refund or holiday bonuses, no budget, not paying future self, using credit for items that can be purchased cash, not saving.
Those are all great. Those are in the financial habits I have up here right now are definitely not all inclusive. There are probably 100 other poor financial habits, as Regina just listed out, that you can add to this list. Anything else that anybody popped up?
Not yet. That's it. That was the last one.
All right, so we'll work through this. And someone said about using your tax refund. So like tax rich. Everybody knows it's tax season right now. It's crab leg season. It's buy a new car season. Like that's what season is right now. And it's not. It's a poor financial habit that people have. We'll go into how to effectively leverage your tax refund and extra money that you may be receiving. But that's obviously a poor financial habit. Overspending and overusing credit cards kind of go hand in hand. If you're overspending, you're probably using your credit card to purchase things that you don't necessarily need or that you don't have the cash for. That's a poor financial habit. Never budgeting, like somebody already mentioned. If you don't know where your money is going, then it's almost impossible to properly save and properly invest and start building that generational wealth. As we're working through these, remember our ultimate goal is generational stability and generational wealth. So not saving, like somebody else already said, in case of emergencies. We'll talk about that as well. Or using credit card, like I said, paying bills late, like the example I used previously. I know for me at a young age, when I was 18, 19, when I first started working and getting a tax refund, I definitely just spent my entire check on like clothes and video games. There was no thought behind it. I didn't have any, I wasn't worried about investing. I wasn't worried about saving. He was like, oh, I got this check. It's go time. I'm spending on whatever I want. This is extra money. So those are poor financial habits, and those were poor financial habits I used to practice, excuse me. But we'll go through some sound, good financial habits later on in the slides. So, like I said, these are the five pillars I believe to building and maintaining generational stability or generational wealth. You can probably break these out into several subcategories or several smaller pillars, but these are what I believe are the foundation to creating and maintaining generational wealth and allowing your family to create and maintain generational wealth for years to come. So budgeting, debt, saving, investing, and lastly, income. Income is last because I think it is the least important. Income matters. Obviously, if you don't have any income, it's hard to save, it's hard to invest, it's hard to build generational wealth. But all these other pillars, I think, matter more. And we'll talk through that as we're going through these slides. So first step is budgeting. Budgeting allows you to keep your spending in check and understand where your money is going. Something that I've seen often is people saying like, I need to make more money, which you may need to make more money, but you don't know that for sure unless you know where your money's going in the first place. What are you spending your money on that's making you that's forcing you to be stuck in the cycle of paycheck to paycheck? And there are circumstances where people don't make a lot of money and that you do need to make more income. And we'll talk about that. But the first step is really budgeting. Something I think about for myself was my first job when I was 16 was at Wawa. It was making 8.25 an hour. That was back when the New Jersey minimum wage was, I think, 7.25 or 7.50. So I felt good about my 8.25. I thought it was the best thing ever that I was making 8.25 an hour at 16. A few years later, I'm in college. I got an internship. And at my internship, I started making 3 to 4 times what I made at Wawa instantly. But you know what didn't change? My savings account. My savings account literally did not change because I did not budget. I didn't have the financial habits in place that would allow me to grow my money and save long term and invest. Those things were just not on my mind. So I think that moment was when I realized that I had to make a change in order to improve my financial circumstances and create generational wealth. So budgeting starts with your bills and bank statements. So look at your bills, see what you pay a month for rent, see what you pay every month for your phone bill. Any expenses that you pay on a monthly basis can go into your budget. Any needs can go into your budget. And we'll go through an example in a second. Budget monthly over at least a year. So when I say this, what I'm saying is you should have a monthly budget categorized and it should extend out to a year. So if you have an idea, okay, over the next year, I'll have this much money saved up if I stick to my budget. So you have an understanding of what to expect. Me and my girlfriend, our budget goes out, I believe, to 6 years or so. That's because we have a 5-year home buying plan. So for us, 6 years is like, okay, 6 years, we'll have an understanding of if we have enough money saved up, or if we will have enough money saved up. And then we'll have an understanding if we can maintain that home after we purchase it. After we put that down payment down, can we keep up with the expenses of owning a home? So budgeting is really the foundation to creating and maintaining generational wealth, because once I know where my money is going, and once I have an understanding of what I can do to break it out, to invest, to save for a home, a new car, now I'm in a better position moving forward. Also, something I wanted to mention are budgeting apps. So I use Microsoft Excel because I'm an accountant, I'm a nerd. So Microsoft Excel is easy for me to use. But there's also apps like Mint. You need a budget. That's what YNAB stands for. Every dollar budget. These are all apps that people use um, to budget. So we're going to walk through an example of what somebody's expenses and budget could look like previous to budgeting. So when I say this before, so you're starting your budget. You're looking at your expenses, you're looking at your income every month. You're seeing where you land or where you've landed in the past for the past month. So for this, I use the average US citizen salary, which is 50K, which is roughly 3,125 a month after taxes. So obviously you should use your after tax income because that's what's going into your pocket. If you use your before tax income, it's obviously not what you'll actually receive. So use your after tax income. So before budgeting, for example, and these numbers, some people are probably like $1,000 for rent. Like it depends on where you live. So obviously, some places are going to have higher rent, some lower. It just all depends. Also, this budget example is for a single person. So like I didn't add in any expenses for a child or anything like that. I just kind of kept it more simple. So rent, $1,000, utility, phone bill, cable, etc. I'm going through these. So for example, for me, I get a haircut every month or twice a month, excuse me, definitely not once a month, twice a month. So for me, I know I'm going to get a cut every month. That's happening every month, twice a month. So I put that into my budget. If you go for women, if you go and get your nails done every month, or you get your hair done every month, or whatever, put that in your budget. So something else that happened to me before I started budgeting was once I laid out my budget, I said, okay, where's all my money going? I realized that I was spending entirely too much money on food. I ate out so much that I was spending $607 a month, $600 to $700 a month eating out. And this was before I had my girlfriend and my daughter. It was just me. So it was I was uncontrollably spending, but I had no idea where my money was going. So that was a problem. Something else I put in the budget, hobby. So if you have a hobby, whatever that may be, put it in the budget if you need money for it. Spotify, Netflix, everybody has streaming service. $30. That's probably something that's common. Clothes, shoes, if you spend money on things like that. And then we also leveraged examples or put in examples of debt that people may need to pay off. And these debt amounts are going to tie into our debt pillar as well. So keep these amounts in mind. And then lastly, we see our total expenses. And after expenses, we're in the negative. We have negative $400. Now, how can that happen? That's because you're using a credit card to make ends meet and get by. In a situation like this, it's impossible to create or maintain generational wealth because every month you're in the red. Every month you can't invest or you shouldn't be investing because you have a lot of debt. You can't make ends meet. So right now we have to fix this and get it so that we are at a surplus every month, meaning we're in the green every month and we have more money saved up every month. So next example. So this is a compare. Oh, excuse me. There we go. This is an example of before and after budgeting. So after budgeting is on the right. Which is the first thing that I added was a savings line. Pay yourself first before anything else. It should be prioritized just as much as rent, utilities, your phone bill, etc. Pay yourself first. Set aside money to put into your savings that you don't touch so that every month you're saving money. That's really important. It's essential. And we'll talk about saving in more detail in a later slide. So then next, you'll see the ones highlighted in bold are situations or categories where I identified that I could cut on my spending personally. This is like some of these are actual things that I cut on. So rent, for example, you can get a roommate. Is that an easy thing to do? Is that ideal? No, depending on where you are in your life, if you have a husband, wife. But if you're younger and you can just get a roommate for a few months or a year, rent is an amazing opportunity to split bills and pay less so that you can save up and get ready to start our journey to building wealth. You need cash to build wealth, and cutting your spending is an amazing way to do it. Phone bill, cable, car insurance. Something that I didn't do early on was I didn't shop around. I just knew that Sprint was was the bill that my family has, so I just got Sprint. But every time you start a new service, just shop around. Or if you have services that you've never shopped around for, just shop around, see how much savings are out there. And you can say $30 isn't a lot of savings, but $30 plus 100 plus 50, you see it starts to add up and snowball into significant savings. So think about that. Food, for me, like I said, I ate out a lot. Once I cut back, I started going to Aldi's. Aldi's is an amazing spot. I'll plug them. This isn't sponsored by them or anything, but I love Aldi's. It's cheap, it's affordable, they have quality food. Um, there was an amazing opportunity for me to cut on food. Haircut, it didn't change, and that's okay because I'm still getting a haircut twice a month. It has to be put into my budget. I need that, so that's okay. You'll have those things that are necessities for you or that are non-negotiable. Hobby, maybe you need to cut back on how much you spend every month on your hobby. Spotify or Netflix. So we canceled our Netflix account. We share a Netflix account with some other friends, not advertising or telling people to go and share Netflix accounts. That's something we decided to do. And then Spotify, my girlfriend and I were paying $10 a month each for Spotify, so 20 total. Then we found out that Spotify Duo exists and it's $14. And I understand that it's only $6 of savings, but that's part of practicing sound financial habits like we talked about. It's understanding that if I can easily save money, why don't I just go ahead and save money? It takes 10 minutes to make a new account, make the new account and save the money. And that's part of practicing a good financial habit. Clothes, maybe I need to cut back on how much clothes I'm purchasing every month and change it to every other month or every season and check my spending. And then you'll see for credit card payment number one, it increased by $200. We'll talk about that in the debt video, why that happened in the debt slides, why that happened. And then we're also still making the minimum payments on the rest of our expenses. So total expenses around 3K. After taxes, or sorry, after expenses, we have $132 left. Remember, we allocated 500 to savings. So it's really $632 left after we look at our budget and cut back on our spending. And remember what the ultimate goal is, why everybody's here listening to this. We want to create generational wealth. And part of that is budgeting, cutting our spending, and understanding that cutting our spending will open up our money to invest, to create businesses, to pursue other ventures, to create and maintain generational wealth. And like I said, budgeting is also a great financial habit to have. That's something that you can teach your kids about, that they can start to do, that they can teach their kids about and their family about, something that can be passed down, something more than assets, but knowledge that can be passed down from one generation to the next. So any questions on budgeting or budgeting, I guess at this point? Or I'm not sure if anybody asked any other questions previously.
You don't have any yet.
Okay. We can always circle back. Like I said, we have Q&As in between each pillar, so we could circle back to budgeting. That's fine as well. All right, I'll hop into the next slide. So rules of debt, ideas and concepts that I follow when it comes to debt. So cash is king. I think people typically use this in a different sense, but when I say this, I'm saying that if you don't have the cash in the bank, you probably shouldn't make that purchase. With the exception of a home, I don't have many friends. I know many people that have 300K or 450K or 200K sitting in the bank right now. But with the exception of home buying, if you're using your credit card, you should have the cash in the bank to match that immediately. It shouldn't be a situation where you're using a credit card to pay for things or items that you can't afford. And I think somebody mentioned that as a poor financial habit earlier on. Well, then the next thing, only going into debt when it's necessary. For example, home buying. Most people need a mortgage to purchase a home. There's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. You'll get a mortgage as you're paying down that loan. You'll put money in the principal, and then you'll have equity in that asset. So that's okay. Home buying is a little bit different, but for credit cards specifically, understanding that credit cards have high interest rates. And we'll go through an example of this in a second, but understanding that when you use a credit card and you don't pay off the balance in full at the end of the month, then you're paying extra for whatever you bought because of the interest. So if you spend $10 on something and then you let it roll over to the next month and you pay interest on, let's say 20% interest, then you're paying $12 for that. You paid $12 or you're paying $12 for something that's worth $10. And obviously, as the numbers get higher, the higher the interest, the higher that gap is. But understand that when you're not paying off your debt in full, you're overpaying for items. And that's exactly what happened. So I do use my credit card for pretty much all of my expenses, but I pay my debt off in full at the end of every month. So I use my credit cards for the reward points, and then I pay it off in full at the end of every month. So because I have the cash for it, I know I have the cash for it. It's not going to be an issue. I just want the reward points for travel and stuff like that. I mean, I'm not traveling anywhere anytime soon, but for travel in the future, I have those reward points. And then lastly, using extra money. And sorry, I think my girlfriend's put my daughter to bed and she's crying, but I hope people can hear that. But lastly, using extra money to get rid of your debt. And I think somebody mentioned the tax refund earlier in one of the questions. Using money to get rid of debt or using extra money to get rid of debt is I can't even think of the word right now. It's an amazing opportunity to save money and get ahead and fix your mistakes. The mistakes you might have made overusing a credit card. This is an opportunity for you to pay down your debt. So something I did, for example, was I had my tax return last year, and then I also got the stimulus check, which obviously no one knew COVID was coming. So the stimulus check came, and I had a car note. So I used both of those payments to pay down my car note. Also, because of the student loan deferments, I didn't have to pay $600 a month for student loans, which I know is a lot of money. I pay $600 a month for student loans. But because of the deferment, I moved the $600 from my student loans to my car note. And instead of paying my car note off in 2 or 3 years, I paid off my car note in 4 or 5 months. And that saved me so much on interest because I just paid it off ahead of time. This was extra money that I know I didn't need because I budget, right? So I know what I typically make every month. I know that because I budget, my expenses are going to come in under what I make. So I had the ability to just use the extra money to pay down my debt. Now I still have student loans, which are killing me, but I don't have any other debt, which is good. So this next video is pretty much a video from my YouTube channel where I talk through an example of how to pay off debt effectively. Hopefully, if you don't have debt yet, then try not to get too much. If you do, this will walk you through one of the strategies to paying off debt. And hopefully this works. What's up, guys? I'm Lance. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear it. Finance. Today we're going to talk about debt. I have debt. You have debt. Today we're going to talk about how we can effectively and efficiently pay off our debt as quickly as possible, regardless of our income. Oftentimes people get caught up in how much that they have, overwhelmed by it, consumed by it. But if you strategize and follow my steps in this video, you'll be able to knock off your debt quickly and easily. So there are several methods you can follow in paying off your debt and paying down your debt. My favorite is called the debt snowball method. You need to list all of your debt from smallest to largest. So smallest balance to largest balance. So now list out the minimum payment that you can make on each. And also, as we're going through this, I'm going to walk through an example to give you the reference. So in this example, we have 4 forms of debt. Credit card number 1. You maxed out your very first credit card on shoes, clothes, food. It was a stupid decision, but you didn't know any better, so that's what you did. $20K for an auto loan. You got that Mustang that you didn't need, and now you're stuck with
$20,000 in a car note. Credit card number 2. We don't even remember getting this credit card. We don't even know what happened, but somehow we racked up $3K in credit card debt. But the 4th thing is student loans. $15K in student loans.
Sorry, 1 second. I think it started to lag and crash. Let's pop this back open. And hopefully this works. Let's try this again. Sorry, 1 second, technical difficulty. Let's see. Can everyone see that? Cool. All right, let's try it one more time. I'll jump ahead really quick.
Number 1, we're going to play the minimum plus whatever else we can afford. So in this example, we did our budget, or we tracked our expenses, or we know how much we can afford. So you figured out that you can afford to pay $200 towards your debt. So now what we're doing is we're paying the $50 minimum plus the $200, so $250 to pay off our first credit card. So each month until this is paid off, we're paying $250 plus the minimum payments for every other form of debt that we have. Do not forget to pay the minimum on everything. So let's talk about what happens if you only pay your minimum balance on your. So I'm going to pop something up on the screen right now. So I'll put this in the description below to kind of help you if you want to use this as a reference. So for this example, we have a $1,000 credit balance, a 20% interest rate. Your credit card company says, oh, you can pay $50 a month. If we pay $50 a month and we pay $226.
All right, sorry, it's not going to work. So pop this back open one more time and we'll hop to the next slide. Unfortunately, I don't have a spare slide on the topic, but what the video basically explains is that you can leverage the debt snowball method to pay off your debt. And I have a YouTube video, you can look it up on Freelance Finance, where I walk through an example, and it compares you paying the minimum balance to you paying a larger balance every month. So in an example in the video, what happened was you paid a minimum balance on your credit card, and in turn, you ended up paying $7,000 in interest because you only made the minimum payments. Versus if you use the debt snowball method, you paid, I believe, $400 or so in interest instead. So sorry that it's not working, but obviously you can go back and check it out on my YouTube channel if you would like, or you can just search the debt snowball method as well. And that can give you a way to pay down your debt. Let me share my screen again. Not that video, but the screen.
Lance, before you go on, you have 3 questions. So one is there such a thing as good debt?
Yeah, and it's a really good question. I think when people refer to good and bad debt, good debt is pretty much anything that has a low interest rate. So anything that's pretty much probably less than 4 or 5%. I know interest rates are lower right now, but pretty much anything that's less than 4 or 5%. And the concept is that if you can invest the additional money that you would pay for the debt, then you will be making money. So if you're investment grows at 6%, but your debt is at 3%, then it's worth it to make the investment instead of paying the debt. In my opinion, I think it's better to pay your debt sooner rather than later. I think once you pay off your debt, it's like a mindset thing more than anything else. It's done and it's over with. You're free. And now you can move on to investing all of your money into investments instead of a portion of your money into investments.
The next question, are student loans considered good debt since they assist in increasing income?
That's a good question. I think it depends on who you ask. I'm biased because I have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree. So I definitely think from my experience, it's worth it. And that it's a form of good debt. I think you have to look at what your potential income may be compared to what your debt is. And then in that case, you can kind of assess whether it's good debt or bad debt. For example, if you go into debt for $100K for a music degree, there's nothing wrong with music degrees. That's okay. But if you go into $100K in debt for a music degree, and then you're going to make $20K a year, that's probably not good debt. So I think you have to, that's definitely bad debt. So I think you need to look at what your potential earnings are compared to what you plan or what you will have as student loans.
Next question, how much do you recommend saving, especially when your funds are always low? For me, if I can pay 10% to church, then I can also save a percentage for myself.
Can you repeat the question one more time?
How much do you recommend saving, especially when your funds are always low? For me, if I can pay 10% to church, then I can also save a percentage for myself.
Yeah, so the recommendation is 20% of your income should be saved. So I would say it's difficult, right? Because obviously if you have a lower income, it's difficult to save. I think your first step, like I said, is budgeting. And then once you budget and you allocate a portion of your funds to tithes or to the church, then you can kind of list out, okay, what am I spending on and what can I afford to save? So the goal is 20% of your income, but obviously 10% is going towards tithes. So I would definitely say budget and then look at where you land. But the goal is, and the recommendation is 20%.
And what is your take on using 0% cards to transfer debt?
Yeah, so I think it's good if you can pay off the debt in full by the end of the term. I think it is an opportunity for you to save on interest. Obviously, I think if people don't know, what they're referring to is like you transfer your balance. So you could have a credit card open with one company, let's say Chase, you have $1,000, then you transfer it to, I don't know, Bank of America, and now you have a 0% APR. So now you're not accruing interest. I think it is a good opportunity. I just wouldn't do it too much also because it hurts your credit score. So I would be careful of how often you're transferring balances. But in the short term, it is an opportunity to save money, but it's not something that I would recommend doing every year or on a consistent basis.
Thank you.
All right, good. Can everyone see my screen? Thumbs up. Cool. All right, next slide. So saving, and we briefly just touched on it for the individual's question. But your first step to saving is budgeting. You have to budget in order and put it into your plan to really effectively save over time. Once you have an understanding of how much you can save, which the recommendation is 20%, like I said, now you have space to invest and do other things because you have money saved up for the future. So something that financial experts recommend is having an emergency fund. So emergency fund represents 3 to 6 months of your expenses. So if you have $2,000 a month in expenses, then you should have $6,000 saved up or $12,000 saved up. So in that range depends on how stable your job is. So if you have like specialized skills and a certification and a degree, then your skills are considered more specialized. So you can probably stick to the 3 month range. But if you have a less specialized job, like in the service industry or something like that, the recommendation is 6 months. And the thought is there is a potential for job or more of a potential for job loss when you work in a more fluctuating industry. And we've seen that with COVID. We've seen a lot of layoffs and a lot of people lose their jobs, primarily in the service industries. So it's an opportunity, and an emergency fund is an opportunity for you to have money saved up. Hey, if I lose my job or if these unexpected expenses come about, then I have money set aside and I don't have to go into debt. I don't have to open up my credit card or use my credit card and swipe. I can go into my emergency fund and use that money until I get a job or until I get a better paying job or until I'm in a better situation. Understand that an emergency fund is for emergencies. Anything unexpected, car breaks down, medical expenses, which we know life happens and things just happen suddenly. Even for us last month, we had $800 worth of medical expenses for my daughter. Just routine office visits that came out $800, which is a lot of money, but we're fine because we have an emergency fund set aside. So understanding that your emergency fund and your savings are designed to protect you just when life happens, when things randomly happen to you. That's what this is. And I think as we talk through this, I talk through some of the advantages. So we'll move on to the next slide. So the next thing is, how do you optimize your saving? That's through a high yield savings account. So high yield savings accounts have higher interest rates compared to traditional savings accounts. So for example, TD Bank or like Bank of America, those brick and mortar, like the banks you walk into, a lot of those banks, savings accounts have 0% interest rates. I've never earned a penny on my TD Bank interest rate or my TD bank account since I was 16. So their interest rate is 0, for example. Whereas if you look at other banks that have high yield savings accounts, like Vero, like Ally, like some other institutions, they have higher interest rates. The average is 1%. Some have higher, some have lower interest rates. And I'm not going to say that investing into a high yield savings account is going to break the bank and instantly put you in a situation where you can create and maintain generational wealth. But it's understanding that it's an easy thing to do to make money. To do nothing, all you need to do is put your money in a bank account and then you earn money, passive income. You earn higher interest earnings because you put your money into a high yield savings account. So understand there's value in that, and understand that you have an emergency fund, right? That you shouldn't be touching unless there's an emergency. So in that case, put your emergency fund in a high yield savings account, and now your emergency money is growing. Is it growing significantly? Probably not, but it's still growing over time. That's a good financial habit to have. Also, generally about high yield savings accounts, they tend to have withdrawal limits of like 6 times per month. At least for mine, I think it's just 6 times per month. So make sure you look at the terms and conditions. Keep that in mind. Some have minimum balances. Just make sure, like I said, look at the conditions. Some have transaction requirements as well. So make sure you're aware of all those things so that you earn as much money as possible. For example, I know for Vero, you have to use your debit card, I think 5 times a month. Don't use the debit card on 5 extra purchases. Use the card on 5 purchases you would have already made. So you would have already bought food. Use it a couple times or a few times for food. You would have already bought gas. Use it for gas. Don't go out and use the card or buy more things because you have to meet this transaction requirement. Just replace it. Just use this card or use this account instead of another account so that you could take advantage of the high yield savings account. And again, remember, our whole goal and what we're trying to do is create and maintain generational wealth. Maximizing our earnings is part of that, no matter how small, and minimizing our spending, no matter how small. Both of those variables are part of creating and maintaining generational wealth. Make sure you're thinking through that as you're coming up with your steps forward. So any questions on this?
I don't see any yet.
Okay. Yeah, just let me know. All right, next. Investing. So obviously I have three examples of investing up here. 401k plan, Roth IRA, 529 plan. Those are all great examples of investing. Obviously, you can use a brokerage account. You can invest into real estate. I don't have enough time to touch on those. And I really want to focus on the key things, the common things, the easier things that people can do to start that path of creating and maintaining generational wealth and understanding the importance of these three plans. We'll go through each one a little more detail in a second. So a 401k plan are often offered by employers. So typically what happens, and every company differs, some companies offer different matches. As an example, let's say you make 50K a year and they say, okay, we'll match up to 5% of your salary. So meaning if you invest 5% of your salary, so 2,500, I believe. So if you invest 2,500, then we'll also match that and put 2,500 into your 401k for you. That's a free $2,500. There aren't really many opportunities to get free money. That's free money that you don't have to do anything for except invest into yourself. When you put your money into a retirement account, specifically a 401k, you're investing into yourself. You have to understand that. And then when your company also puts money towards that, they're investing into you. So I know when I first started working at like Wawa and I worked at Walmart too, I didn't put $1 into my 401k. Like, no, I want all of my check. I don't care what you're talking about. I want my check in full now, not understanding that this was going to help me going into my future. And yes, you can't withdraw money penalty free from a 401k plan until you're older, until you're 59 and a half. Sorry if anybody's over 59, but until you're a little more seasoned, you can't pull money out of your 401k, but it's still an opportunity for you to get set up for your future, right? When you invest into a 401k plan and you have all this money set aside for your future, now think about this. Your kids don't have to really worry about you because you took care of yourself. Your kids don't have to worry about where you're going to live or what your livelihood or your life looks like, I should say, because you already invested into yourself, into your retirement, and you can retire comfortably because you started investing into a 401k plan early. So then some rules that people should know. There are contribution limits. So for 2020, it was 19,500. It changes year over year. Like I said, if you withdraw after you're 59 and a half, I don't know why it's a half, but 59 and a half, then that withdrawal is penalty and tax free. But no, if you withdraw your money early, there's a 10% penalty plus taxes on your earnings. So if you invest into a 401k, you're 100% better off leaving your money there than removing money at any point or withdrawing money early. Leave it there, let it grow. And in the future, you'll thank your 20-year-old, 30-year-old, 40-year-old self for investing into a 401k plan early. And how to invest, like I said, every company is different. Contact your company HR department. See if they offer a 401k plan. If they do, see how you can get started, how you can start investing and contributing to that and see how much they offer. And as I was talking, I talked through the advantages. You're freeing up money, tax-free withdrawals. So let's say you put $100 in, it goes into an investment account. So that $100 grows, let's say, to 150 over 18 years or however long. That's $50 that you didn't really have to do anything for except place it into a retirement account and let it grow. You don't need to have any specialized investing knowledge, nothing like that. They have default options and robo advisors that can help you and assist you with investing. So leverage that And then also, it frees up money for other ventures. So as you get older, as you become more experienced in life, you're going to get to a point where you want to do more things. You want to try different businesses, or you want to go on vacation more, which is important. Living life is just as important as having your finances in check. So now, because I invested into my 401k plan early on, now when I'm older, I don't have to worry about anything. I have my 401k that I'm taking money out of, and I can go on vacation with my wife. I can go on vacation with my husband, or I can take my kids to on vacation. So it really sets you up, and it's a ripple effect. It allows a lot of things for the future. So the next thing is a Roth IRA. It's also a form of retirement account. So if your company does not offer a 401k, then I would recommend using a Roth IRA and investing for Roth IRA. Unfortunately, there's no match, but your investment still grows over time because it's going into an investment account. So you put your money in, it grows all the time. It operates very similarly to a Roth IRA. And there are some exceptions for withdrawals that I won't go through right now, but you want to put your money into a Roth IRA, leave it there, and similar to the 401k, it grows over time, and now you're set up for the future. And for example, like my girlfriend, she doesn't have a 401k offered by her job, so we put money into a Roth IRA every year for her so that she's ready for retirement as well. Not I have a 401k with my job, she has a Roth IRA. She's 25 or she's 26. I hope she doesn't. I hope she's not watching right now and thinks I forgot her age, but she's 26, and we're gonna be set up once we get old and grow older for retirement for the future. Some things to note, just a few rules. There's limitations to your contributions every year. So it's 6K for a Roth IRA. Withdrawals are tax-free after the age of 59 and a half. But just know that, so for example, if you start investing to your Roth IRA, when you're, let's say, 56, you have to wait 5 years before you can wait withdrawals tax penalty free. So either 5+ years of owning the account, as well as you have to be over 59 and a half. Similar to the 401k, withdrawals have a penalty and tax imposed upon them from the earnings. You can take any contributions you make out tax-free and penalty-free. For example, let's say I invest $100. I can withdraw that $100 for free at any time. I do not recommend that at all. You lose out on a ton of earnings when you do that. But just know, I know COVID is causing a lot of problems for a lot of people financially. So just know that's an option, but it's an absolute last resort. Other things, how to invest. There are a bunch of different options: Ally Invest, Betterment, SoFi. These definitely aren't recommendations. These are just to make you aware that these are out there. Understanding that there are many opportunities for you to invest, and you don't have to have any specialized skills in order to invest. There are robo advisors, there are default options that these companies offer that will help you invest and make it as easy on you as possible so that you can grow your money and save for your future. And again, I want to hammer home that these retirement accounts are really essential and really are a part of creating and maintaining generational wealth. Like I said, if you are set as far as the money you have set aside as you grow older, your kids, your family don't have to set aside money for you. They can focus on what they need to focus on. They can invest into their kids' future. They can invest into their future because you already took care of yourself. And that's part of creating generational wealth. This is something that's very helpful that people should take advantage of. So any questions on Roth IRAs or 401ks? Or any other questions as well, Regina?
So the question is, how do you locate high yield savings accounts?
Yeah, good question. I just Google best high yield savings accounts. I think Google is like a great source, and I think there's not any specific site that's going to say, hey, like these are all the high yield savings accounts, but there are sites that's kind of summarize it. So I literally would just Google best high yield savings accounts, and there should be a link that will have some on there for you. And then you can look into which one is the best for you as far as if they have transaction limits or minimum balances, etc.
Someone answered the question as well, and they said they use Doctor of Credit. And then the question that they have is traditional 401k tax-free after 59 and a half.
Wait, sorry, is that a question?
Yes, that part is a traditional 401k tax-free after 59 and a half.
Yes.
And then if a withdrawal is necessary, I do a 401k loan. Lance, what are your thoughts?
No, I would not do a 401k loan. And if you already have, then obviously you want to work on using our debt strategies to pay off that debt. But I think when you borrow from your 401k, you're also losing out on future earnings because you're removing money, you're removing principal from your 401k plan. So now that money's not growing, and now there's a smaller balance in your 401k because 401ks, Roth IRAs, investments compound interest over time. So when you take money out of those don't compound as much interest. So I think personally, for borrowing from your 401k is a huge mistake. I would honestly rather use like a personal loan than borrow from my 401k if I have to, if you absolutely need to. But I would definitely avoid borrowing from your 401k at all costs because you lose out because you pay interest on that and then you also lose out on earnings.
Can you deposit a lump sum into a Roth IRA or limit it to $6,000 a year?
So this is a good question, and I don't want to give the wrong answer. I'll say I know that the maximum contributions per year is 6K. So if you want to deposit 6K, let's say today, then you can do that. I'm honestly not 100% sure on the answer to the second part of that. So you could probably just Google it, to be honest. Sorry, I don't know the answer to that. I don't want to give any wrong information.
Those are all the questions I see as of right now.
Okay, cool. So I'll move on to the next section. If it lets me. Okay. So a 529 plan. Personally, I believe this is probably one of the most important investments that you can make if you have kids or if you have a little brother, if you have a little cousin, or anybody that's younger, that's important to you, or for yourself, if you know you plan on pursuing a higher education in the future. Investment. So these are investment accounts that can be used for higher education. Higher education, including K through 12 private school, I think up to $10,000 for K through 12 private school. It can be used for college, tech school, and vocational school. So not only your what people usually say like college, but also like vocational school and tech school as well. So this is an amazing opportunity for your money to grow and for you to use it for your child's or your education tax-free and penalty-free. So the rules for this vary by state and by plan. You have to look up the individual rules for individual 529 plans. Similar to the high yield savings account, I would literally just Google best 529 plans and you'll see lists of 529 plans that are options. Look at the rules, conditions, and see which one is the best fit for you and which one that you are that you can invest into. Because some 529 plans only allows you to invest if you're a resident or a citizen of that or resident of that state. So make sure you're looking at the plan and making sure it's available to you. And I also believe that if you try to invest into a plan that you can't invest into, it would give you an alert like, hey, you're a New Jersey resident. You can't invest into the Florida plan because that's one of their rules. So you have to look at the rules for each individual plan to get a good idea. Withdrawals for education are tax-free and penalty-free. So what happens is, for example, and hopefully this next video works. If it doesn't, I'll briefly give an example right now. Let's say you put $100 into a 529 plan. That $100 will grow to, let's say, for example, $150. Usually, if you put your money into a brokerage account, you'll have to pay taxes on that $50. But with the 529 plan, if you use it for qualified educational expenses, meaning tuition, room and board, books, etc., you don't have to pay any taxes on that. So that's the huge advantage to educational savings plan. And also comparatively to a savings account, it gives you a lot of room for earnings. You'll have to invest less into or contribute less into the 529 plan because that money is growing compared to a savings account. How to invest, 529 plan sites. Same thing again. It's free money. It's easy. You put your money into account. They have default options. That money grows over time. Tax-free withdrawals, like I mentioned, frees up money for other ventures. I'll put this on like all the investment sides because these are all investments into your future. So understand, if you put $50 a month into a 529 plan and that grows over time into 20K, that's 20K less in student loans that you would have to take out or your child to take out. $20,000. That's a lot of money just from you putting $50 aside into a 529 plan. So I'm going to try to play this video. If it doesn't work the first time, then we'll just hop into the next slide. Educational. It didn't work the first time. So we're gonna hop to the next slide. Let me share my screen again. Let me get off this this video. Now I know these don't work. But basically the 529 plan video pretty much explained kind of what I illustrated. That for in the example was if you start putting $50 a month into a 529 plan when your child, say let's say 1 year old, and that money has the potential to grow to 20K over 17 or 18 years.
Are also referred to as
Sorry, 1
529
second.
plans. These plans can be used for college, so 2-year or 4-year universities, community colleges, vocational school, tech school.
It's taking a second to
It's really
close. Sorry,
essential
1 second.
creating that generational wealth that we always talk about. We're talking about really saving for our children's future. When I say our children, I don't only mean like your own.
All right, there we go. Let me pop this back open so we can move on to the next slide. But basically what the video explains is that if you put $50 a month into a 529 plan, that has the potential to grow into 20K compared to if you put your money in a savings account, let's say, $50 a month times 12 for 18 years, I believe was like 10,800. So 10,800 if you put your money into a savings account compared to 20,000 potentially if you invest into a 529 plan. And now it's even more money for your child's education or for your education. I keep saying your child, but I should emphasize that you can also use this for yourself. If you plan on going to college again in 10 years, you can start a 529 plan for yourself now, and that money will grow over time. And you can use that when you're ready to go to college, whenever that may be. Pop the slides back open. And then the next slide is just any questions. So let me know if there are any additional questions, Regina.
So the question is, I have a 401k balance from a job that I'm no longer full-time at. Can I transfer it to my Roth account?
So I don't know if you could transfer it to your Roth account, but I know that you could transfer it to another 401k. I'm not sure if there are penalties or taxes associated with transferring it to a Roth IRA, but I know that transferring it to another 401k with like your new job would allow you to transfer tax-free or penalty-free.
Are there uses for a 529 if the child will not be going to college?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So basically, you can transfer the 529 plan to another beneficiary. So if you have another kid that wants to go to school, you can transfer it to them. If you want to donate it, you can do that. If you want to use it for yourself, a cousin, a family member, a friend, you can change the beneficiary of that 529 plan at any time. If your child or whoever does decide they don't want to go to college or attend any higher education institution.
Thoughts on Acorn, Robinhood, Schwab slices?
Robinhood, Acorn, Schwab slices. So Schwab slices I've never heard of. For Acorn, it depends on how much you're investing. I'm pretty sure that the fee when I did it originally was like $1 per month. And what typically happens was the dollar per month was eating up into my earnings every month. So I ended up losing money, or I wasn't making as much money as I could have. Something like Robinhood, which I do use, it's free. So there's really not many, not penalties, but not many fees associated with Robinhood. So it's an amazing opportunity to save money versus Acorn, where they take a flat fee and it really eats into your earnings over time.
Our Facebook question, do you recommend borrowing against your investments, a 401k?
No. So I think I might have briefly explained this before, but just to kind of explain it again, um, when you take money out of your 401k, you have to pay interest on that money, and then you're also losing out on potential earnings the longer it takes you to pay off your 401k loan. So I definitely would never take out a loan against my 401k. I would rather just take out a personal loan and leverage that than use a 401k for sure.
Those are all the questions I see.
Yeah, really good questions. Let me open this back up because it messed up on me again. Now I know, live and learn. All right. So next, income. Income is a difficult topic because everybody's potential earnings is different depending on where you live, what your interests are, what education you have. All of those are different factors. But I think these three things are really important things to think about when you're thinking about how to grow your income, how to maintain your income. Like I said, income is obviously very important to creating and maintaining generational wealth. So you do want to maximize your income, but you also want to maximize, or you also want to practice those other financial habits that we talked about. You want to budget. You want to pay down your debt and avoid debt as much as possible. You want to have an emergency fund and save. You want to invest into your 401k and retirement and 529 plan for education. You want to do all those things as well as maximize your earnings. Something I think about often is lifestyle inflation, which refers to when as people grow their income, they just tend to spend more money. So you got a better job, so you went and bought a new car. That's also a poor financial habit. It's also a form of lifestyle inflation. Your circumstances don't change, and now you're still in that cycle of paycheck to paycheck because as your income increased, you just increased your expenses. So understanding and avoiding lifestyle inflation, understanding that there's money lost every time you do that. And that's something that I definitely did. Like I said, before I budgeted, and at my first job, I made like 825. And then I had my job making 3 to 4 times at my internship. And my savings didn't change because I just started spending more money. With more money just came more expenses because I didn't budget and I didn't think about how much I was spending. Risk and opportunities. Understanding that you have to take risks and take advantage of opportunities in order to grow your income. There's no special formula to growing your income. Understanding that you have to take risks and take advantage of opportunities, like I just said. So, for example, something I think about is for my internship, I actually applied for a finance position at a company, and I went in and I had the hour-long interview with the finance manager. And we got to the end, he's like, "Hey, I actually don't think this position's for you." And my heart dropped. I'm like, wow, like I really wanted this internship. But then he said, "I'm gonna go and get the accounting manager and he'll interview you." And that's something that you see like movies. And it was just like, oh, like because I went ahead of this interview, now I have the opportunity to move into a role that I'm probably better suited for. So that was something that helped me propel my career and where I am today. I had the internship, now I have a good full-time job. And taking those risks and taking advantage of opportunities is kind of what helps you build and increase your income. I can't tell individuals how to increase their income because it just depends on you and your individual skill set and circumstances. but understand that you have to take advantage of opportunities and take risks. Lastly, creating revenue streams, which I feel like is talked about the most on social media. It's like, hey, join my team. You can make X, Y, and Z amount. Yes, creating revenue streams is also important. Creating passive income through investments in a brokerage account, or creating income through other avenues like real estate or a small business, investing into your own business or somebody else's business. Those are all avenues and revenue streams or options for revenue streams that you can create. But these, again, these vary by individual. You have to look into these and research them yourself and see what's best fit for you. And honestly, now that we're budgeting, now that we're saving, now that we paid off our debt, the opportunities are endless. Now that I have all my money saved up, my money's not stuck in debt. Now I have more money to invest. I have more money that I can take risks with and buy some real estate. Because the more money you have, there definitely comes more opportunities to take advantage of I guess building your income. But I guess just understand that all of those other pillars, all those other steps relating to generational stability and generational wealth is what gets you to this point where you can create more revenue streams. That combined with taking advantage of opportunities and taking risks in your life gets you there. Oh, I didn't mean to. There you go. So thank you. If you stuck around the whole time, I definitely appreciate it. You can follow me on Instagram or Facebook and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you want more information about different topics. I definitely go through everything in more detail. And you definitely can DM me on Facebook or Instagram. If there's anything I didn't answer or talk about in enough detail, shoot me a message and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. Because obviously we want to, as a community, as people, we want to build generational wealth together. Like I want generational wealth for my family, but I also want it for those people around me. So any questions you have, feel free to reach out. And thanks for sticking around.
Are there any other questions before we wrap this up? I don't see any, but once again, thank you, Lance, for your time and your energy and passion about building generational wealth. I would be remiss to not mention that this is my godson, and I am extremely proud of him for all that he's accomplished thus far. For all of you who are on the call, you will receive an email that's asking you to complete a survey about this session and asking about future sessions. If you would take time to please fill it out so we can continue to improve and become efficient and effective at what we are doing. Our next session will be March 22nd, and we'll be talking about being fit and fancy. So visit the website, www.whynotinc.org, like and share us on Facebook, and we'll see you next time.
All right, thanks everybody. See you, Regina.
Bye-bye.